Hello everyone, this is Naresh IAS Academy digital platform for the IAS Mains Exam. Now we are working on General Studies question paper 2 for IAS Mains Exam. This is the next part. Now I am going to discuss the next topic, the pressure group, its origin, functioning and the effectiveness. We are providing offline classes at the Jaipur center. So you may contact, and you also can take help from our qualitative answer writing session. So you may join for any queries or information. You may take help, because IAS exam mainly requires guidance and the updation in your knowledge. So you must be alert always. So this is the next topic, the pressure group. I am trying that the entire question paper 2 should be completed into 20 topics in short and brief, and for detailing you can take help from our website, and through these videos more important information I will discuss. The pressure group, first the composition, and next is the functioning. Composition and structure of pressure group. The pressure group broadly divided into the formal pressure group PG and the informal. And functioning, I will discuss the different points, and finally the evaluation of the pressure group. This is a synopsis of the topic. What are the pressure groups and why they have emerged not only in India, throughout the world, and in the present time the pressure group are playing important role between the government and their peoples. Pressure groups are the organization of the citizens and peoples of any country, and mainly they are divided into formal and the informal. The pressure groups are the formal or informal. Formal pressure groups are the pressure group created by the official authorities. Persons are working under the union or the state governments, while the informal pressure groups are formed by the individuals are working in private sector and in their own organizations. So this is the linear difference between them. Here we have to understand, in the recent time, if we have studied last 30 years, the position or strength of formal pressure group is more than the informals, and definitely we can say the formal pressure groups have more strong than the informals, because these are the organization of the government officials. They have more bargaining power than the informal PGs, and they can pressurize the government to accept their demands, because if government reject their demands or denied, definitely they may hamper or they may disturb all the channels or delivery of public services. So the government is bound to immediately compromise with them. For example, there are different kinds of formal pressure group. In a states, the teachers association, the government teachers, government doctors associations, and the civil servants association. And at the national level, all India IAS officers association or all India civil servants association, all India teachers association, all India doctors association. So these are some of the example, and they have important role in the government sectors. They know everything about the government's functioning, drawbacks and the strong points. So they have a more bargaining power, and that's why government always ready to compromise, sometimes ready to enhance or increase whatever their demands or their facilities. But in case of the informal pressure groups, the informal pressure groups, you may understand through the example the trade unions like the Hind Mazdoor Sabha, ATAK, INTAK, Bharat Mazdoor Sabha, students pressure groups like the NSUI, the NSUI related to the Congress mainly, and the peasants or farmers pressure groups like the Bharatiya Kisan Unions, women's organization, they are working as the pressure group. So many pressure groups in the environmental sectors. So mainly the scope and working area of informal pressure group is more wide than the formals, because the formal sector is narrow in their size as compared to the informal pressure groups. Recently, the another tendency we have seen, the informal pressure groups have attained expertise in their fields, and they have accurate information and data of the remote areas or specific communities, and definitely it assists the government to make laws or to implement their schemes and the different kinds of programs. So that the informal pressure group definitely provide a concrete information for the governments, and it is easy to government to govern or to cover all these people through their policies or governing systems. But a third tendency which have emerged, the political parties, they are the important tools of democracy in India, and one or sometimes more than one or two political parties run the government at the states or union level or the center level, and the other parties, while they are playing role as the opposition parties. So these opposition party connects to any informal pressure groups like the NSUI or the environmental pressure groups and the Bharatiya Kisan Union. So these pressure groups mainly becomes the informal face of political parties, and through these political parties try to raise the disputed matters or the issues of those areas are not in the excess of governments, and through which they criticize the ruling parties, and they create so many difficulties before the ruling parties, and they bound to action, the political party, they bound to take action by the ruling parties. If the ruling party fails to take decision or to satisfy the people, definitely it becomes a important criticism of the ruling parties, and in the next election they may have to lose their democratic ways. So it may be a great loss to the ruling parties. So we can say the informal pressure group mainly have emerged as the informal face of the different political parties, because political parties through these pressure groups raise the different kinds of issues and bound the ruling parties or the government to take effective action. However, the governments have not sufficient revenue resources. Sometimes it is not necessary or not easy to take action, but they may create difficulties for the government, and they defame the government before the Indian peoples, and the next time they can get political benefits in the next election. So here you have to understand the two different tendencies. One, the formal pressure groups have the strong or the more bargaining power than the informal groups, and why the formal pressure groups generally are advantageous than the informals to convince the government to accept their demand, while the informal pressure groups have the less bargaining power. If government denied their demands, if the demands are the genuine also, so definitely the informal pressure group cannot pressurize government or cannot hamper all the governing systems. So the government generally they cannot take care of the different matters of the informal pressure group, but in case of formal pressure group it is not easy to avoid their demands. And second, how the informal pressure groups have become the informal face of the political parties. The next part is the functioning of the pressure group. Pressure groups are working in the remote areas or different part of the country, and they are working within the different communities, and mainly they have raised the so many matters of the minorities or women's or environmental issues and the matters of the child labor. So definitely we can say they are very effective according to their functioning. They have expertise in the different sectors, and the expertise knowledge is required by the government to take action, to make law or for the implementation of any schemes. And the public awareness, mainly the pressure groups provide informations about the government scheme to their peoples, and this aware the peoples. And pressure groups also uh, uh, make the peoples participant in the democratic system through making them aware toward their rights. Through the pressure group, peoples know how to perform or enjoy their fundamental rights, civilian rights as granted by the Indian Constitution or by the different laws. So then the role of pressure group is more wide in the different sectors, and two or the more examples in the environmental sector. We have seen recently the different pressure groups raise the matter through the petition in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered to the union government or state government and to stop immediately those development units are creating pollution and they are destroying the forest area or the wildlife. So definitely it is the concrete role of the pressure group. And another sector this mainly belongs to the child labor or the women's. There are so many issues related to the women's life or the small children's, and different cases were raised by these groups, and they presented the concrete data, accurate information. When government studied, the government have made so many laws and have taken very strict action not to exploit these classes by the another sections. So the role of the pressure group is more effective. And what is the scope and what is the future? So we have to aware if the pressure groups are providing service to different communities or are working as a spirit of service to their nation, then definitely government should promote, government should provide technical assistance, financial assistance and the admin assistance too. And government also must be alert if the pressure groups are working to fulfill their individual interest and they are trying to priority the minorities interest over the majorities, and if the pressure groups are the biased towards any specific community or political parties, so definitely government take the strict action against these pressure groups, because the government policies have universal nature and there is no discrimination, and the government policies are not formed to provide priorities or specific qualities of services to the specific communities, because governments is a organization of all the peoples, all the citizens of country. Okay, so then you have to understand this topic in this way, in this approach. So the previous year question paper you must read and observe. Now you may tackle these questions. Thank you.